Good evening. Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings. My name is Julian Hode.
And I'm Georgie Hollis. I'm taking over Mike's place tonight because he's not here.
Yeah, where is Mike? We looked everywhere, didn't we? Could you find him anywhere?
I looked under the sofa.
Yeah.
In the spare room.
Yeah. I looked in the garden. With a little tree house at the back. He's not there. He sometimes goes and hides up there, and he's not there.
Tried the dustbin.
Ah, in case there's any half-empty bottles of gin.
Maybe.
It's an idea, isn't it?
Hi, I'm Mike Brampton.
And my name is Julian Hode.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings.
Anyway, look, we've got to get on because time is short. But we have a guest tonight, don't we, Georgie?
We do.
A mystery guest. Now, his name I've got here. His name is Michalis Bramptonopoulos.
Oh, foreign.
Michalis Bramptonopoulos. He's on mainland Greece, and he's going to join us and chat about the Asclepian, and he's going to chat about the Corinth Canal, and he's going to chat about the Mycenaean ruins that are apparently near his home. So should we call on Michalis Bramptonopoulos?
Absolutely.
Here we go.
You've got the tech.
Michalis.
Oh, a man of mystery.
Kalispera, Michalis. Te kanate?
Si.
Surely you mean
Polly.
colour, polycolour. Anyway, good to see you, Michalis.
It's good to see you too.
Well,
Thank you so much for
see that much of you, but yes,
You
a man
can't
of
see a lot.
mystery, indeed.
Yes.
the international man of mystery. Is he Michalis Bramptonopoulos, or is he perhaps someone else? Are we thinking he may be someone that we know? Oh, hold on, I recognise the hat.
What?
Michalis Bramptonopoulos. It's we can't get rid of him. It's Mike Brampton, isn't it?
Damn it.
Oh,
I mean, fantastic.
Oh.
what a great disguise, mate.
Yeah,
that's
it
brilliant.
had you going, didn't it?
I
Yeah.
wondered who it was. I thought it was Van. I
Yeah.
thought it was Van Morrison.
God, we almost missed you.
Yeah.
Hello, Georgie. How are you?
Mike, great to see you.
See, I'm co-hosting tonight with Georgie, and I thought this is great. I get Georgie to myself for an evening, and no Mike to get in the way, and here you are. It's good to see you. Don't get me wrong. It's good to see you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry to let you down, mate.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Marvellous. Are you anywhere nice, Mike?
Me, at the moment,
Okay.
I'm in a lovely place at the moment. And this has actually been recorded in front of a live studio audience
Is it?
from my end, because I'm staying with friends in Greece.
Now, whereabouts in Greece?
Oh, you would ask me that, wouldn't you? You'd probably know this place as Argos. I've been looking for Jason today.
They've just
Yeah.
recently stopped producing their catalogue, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and they don't open on a Sunday round here either.
No.
So I'm in the land of Naphthion, in the Peloponnese.
Do they have a sleep in the afternoon?
Well, they all did, but I was too busy drinking ouzo at the time.
We've got live audience here as well. And am I allowed to give the live audience instructions?
Yes, please do.
Oh,
Not that I'm a bossy wife or anything. Nothing. Sorry.
Richard, get me a gin and tonic.
But Richard, get me a gin and tonic. No, poor Richard's been busy all day. What have you been doing all day? Cutting sedge.
Oh,
Cutting
right.
sedge. I was just going to give Richard the good news that he's going to have to cook our supper tonight.
Excellent.
If that's
What are you
okay.
having?
Richard, what are we having for supper? Pasta.
Very nice.
Pasta with tomato. What about pasta with mushrooms, maybe? Could do, but we've had mushrooms every night of the week this week.
So, have you been foraging again, have you?
We've been foraging non-stop this week. It's everything has just gone berserk. It's almost
What
like
have you got? I haven't had a chance to go out yet this week, but you have, and I've seen some pictures of your
great
forages.
show. Yeah, sorry to shamelessly bring in the foraging.
So you hunt mushrooms
Yes,
on a horse?
absolutely. Yes,
How the other half live?
Mushroom hunting mystery pony.
How do you reach down for them? Or did your horse sort of bow its head down?
No, I get off. I get off when we get to the woods. He knows it's, and then I put my stirrups up. It's very important to put your stirrups up, because if he ran off, you see, and you find a horse that's run off and the stirrups are down, you know someone fell off. But if the stirrups are up, you know that they didn't fall off, they meant to get off.
Ah, right.
I mean, yeah.
I
So
see.
I put his stirrups up, and then what I do is, we just lead him round, and he loves snuffling around and fun.
Yeah, and this is very important for anyone watching this. Georgie just showed a picture of a book called Roger Phillips' Mushrooms. Mushrooms and Other Fungi of Great Britain and Europe. And if you do want to go foraging, then I'd strongly recommend you join a foraging group or get instruction. You can forage if you get a good book on fungi and on foraging generally. However, there are lots of lookalikes. So there are lots and lots of fungi that have poisonous cousins.
So many books that are lookalikes as well.
Absolutely.
They're not Roger
unless you know a little bit about the descriptive terms and you're able to tell the difference between decussate gills and recurrent gills and adnexate gills and porous fungi, bracket fungi, unless you know those differences, you could end up in real dire straits. The author of that fantastic book, The Horse Whisperer, Nicholas Evans, in 2005, I think, cooked a meal for his family. He'd foraged what he thought were ceps. He remembered eating them as a kid. And he fed his family these mushrooms. And unfortunately, they were all taken quite poorly. Fortunately, no one died. But one of them had to have a renal transplant. Another one is still 10 years on having dialysis frequently.
Wow.
And what he got was a mushroom called speciosissimus, Cortinaria speciosissimus, which is actually a gilled mushroom. So when you turn a mushroom from the shop over, you see these radiating lines, which are called gills. Now, Boletus, ceps, porcini is another name for it, or penny buns, have a little sort of sponge on the underneath. So they're called pored mushrooms or pored fungi, or Boletus is another name, Dakinia is another genus. But they have these little spots or pores on the underneath, not gills. And so it was a bit of an error. Not his own fault. He thought he remembered the right ones. It's an honest mistake, but it is very easy to make mistakes. It could be a loss.
Very confusing. There's an awful lot of beliefs, and there's an awful lot of rules that you need to follow, and they don't all look like they do in the book either. So the Phillips book, even I actually, funnily enough, the lady who edited a lot of the photographs and collated all the photographs lives in our village. I met her recently. She worked on the book, and it's very much a case of what they had at the time. And if the image isn't quite right, there's some here that I'm going to use a rude word, but there's a picture of a mushroom here that's got a nipple on the top.
Yeah,
it doesn't normally have a nipple on the top. But if you pick the mushroom, you look at it in the book and you just think, it doesn't look quite right.
And you'd incorrectly ascribe it as a member of the umbellifer family or umbelliferous family, because it looks like an umbrella with a little nipple on the top.
Well, I'm desperate to find a chanterelle.
Oh, one of these you mean?
No!
Yeah!
You trumped me. You trumped me. Damn you. Damn you.
Very nice it was too.
He doesn't have as big a nose as your fungi hunter, does he?
No, I thought he was going to say it's mine. I'd love to find a truffle as well, but I know that's going to be.
I think you need to take a pig into the woods to find a truffle, Georgie.
I think we need to be in a slightly different environment.
I heard a story. I heard a story once of how truffles were named truffles, and it could be wrong, but it's a great story. And it's in the days, 1700s, where the French aristos were still de rigueur. In other words, when they still had their heads, and they would go truffle hunting, and they'd take their little French poodles with them, bichon frisés, and the peasants would go on ahead with the pigs who do the actual truffle hunting. And when the pigs discovered a truffle, they pull the pigs away, call the aristos forward, who go along and pretend the little little cushion dogs had found these things, and they'd say, je les trouve, I found, and they became known as trouvons or trouvels, hence truffles, little finds. So I don't know whether it's true or not, but it's a great story.
Perfectly
Nice
reasonable.
story.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll remember that when I find a chocolate in the fridge.
Yeah, but
And that then segues on to if you live in France, you can take mushrooms to any French pharmacy and they'll identify them for me. It's the same as in Italy. They'll identify them. I think they must, by law, identify the mushrooms for you. However, about 6 to 8 people die in France and Italy each year because the pharmacies incorrectly identify them. So again, a warning for people: mushroom hunting, foraging of any sort can be fantastic, very rewarding, and give you a wonderful meal, but you do have to be very, very careful. And Jules' rules is, if in doubt, leave it out.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the ones that people think are safe are the white ones, the field mushrooms, and actually they'll consider anything that's white to be like a field mushroom, that's safe, and actually they are the most dangerous. So
they are, and I've got a picture, I think, somewhere of a manatee. There we go.
Destroying angel. Is it a destroying angel?
That's a destroying angel. That's right. And destroying angel is awful. It's got to be one of the worst ways to die because it's biphasic. So you eat this mushroom and apparently it tastes delicious. People have eaten it and said it's really nice. And about 5 to 8 hours later, you start getting muscle cramps, and then you start. That's it. So look for the little cup on the bottom. The Volvo.
What do they call that?
Volvo. The Volvo, yeah.
It comes out of an egg, effectively.
Absolutely. So if it comes out of a little cup, then it is an amanita. And other than Caesar's mushroom, which is a manita, and a couple of others, they contain the most poisonous mushroom species. But so people who've eaten destroying angels feel really ill for a few hours, and they get sent to hospital, and the hospital stomach pumps them and sticks them on a drip and things, and they start to feel better after 12 to 18 hours, and then they have irreversible liver and kidney failure and die. There's nothing you can do, unfortunately. Ganoderm is a bracket fungus that's not edible, but is used as an ameliorative in cancer therapy. It's used as something to ablate or reduce the toxic effects of certain chemotherapeutics.
Good Lord. I know there's certainly the mushrooms. Oh God, is it the Enoki mushrooms?
Yes.
That are used for antioxidants that are really tumor reducing potentially. So there's massive research into the use of mushrooms for tumor potential in tumor.
And the interesting thing is that there must be something more than the antioxidant effect, because they've used more potent antioxidants as anti-tumor agents and found that that life expectancy reduces with those patients. The reason being that for apoptosis or killing of the cancer cells, you need oxidation. So most lysosomal enzymes are oxidants, and if you use things that enhance vitamin E and other natural antioxidants, then you remove the body's innate ability to get rid of the cancer itself. So although initially those mushrooms were used because it was found they had an antioxidant effect, they must also have a direct anti-tumor effect.
Interesting, because that's the same argument with curcumin and all of those other things. Just
yes.
to let everyone sort of, I only know it from the wound care side of things, whereas a lot of the research that goes on with apoptosis and tumor formation and those things that are failing, which is the normal cascade of tissue growth and everything else. A lot of the research that's done in tumours tends to sort of filter down into wound management. So they're looking at sort of normal cellular function in healing is very closely associated with tumour formation. So you find that this curcumin and turmeric and all these other things, they go into wound management if they've been using for tumour. Absolutely.
And a friend of mine did his PhD on the effects, the anti-inflammatory effects of curcumin, of turmeric. And he looked at various stages of the inflammatory pathways, the non-COX pathways. And so it's found that that turmeric actually augments the non-COX anti-inflammatory pathways. So incredible stuff.
As long as you get it in the bloodstream, which is I wrote a very short piece for I think it was one of the journals. I think I had like 300 words to explain curcumin and turmeric, and I said you have to get it in the bloodstream, and it's not soluble in water, so you have to put it in coconut oil in order for the curcumin to be available in the bloodstream, and then you have to take black pepper to have pepperine, which apparently is helps it to be more bioavailable. It stops the liver from getting rid of it. Except unfortunately, my spell check changed pepperine to pepperoni, and I hadn't noticed. So when I submitted my little article, it said you've got to eat it with pepperoni.
Brilliant.
So you need a pepperoni, cumin, Thai curry in order to have the same effects, and you boil that in a wok for 30 minutes, adding in spices and extra herbs as you go.
And just chuck them in just to be sure, you never know.
You've actually been quite busy on the Veterinary Wound Library recently, haven't you, Georgie?
Oh, yes, I have. No, we have.
You have. I'm seeing references coming up all over the place recently.
We're on the ball now, I think. No, it's all doing well. So
good.
3 months. We're doing a 3 months rolling agenda for online content, and I think we're going to stick with 2 webinars and a Q&A, and just keep that rolling, and that's working really nicely at the minute.
Brilliant.
So you're developing the whole Veterinary Wound Library to make it easier and more accessible.
Yeah, definitely, and doing a lot more that's sort of focused at what people need, rather than just the telemedicine. It's very much been the telemedicine up to date, but now we've got a bit more time to spend just making the content, getting the content in there, and working with some really nice people. So it's all good again. And I think we spent a lot. I'm just hesitating, thinking, should I say? But worked really far too hard on it over the last 8 years or so, and now kind of stepping back and just trying to have a bit more quality of life, and actually stuff's come better since I've had a bit more headspace and a bit more time to just. It's really interesting. So I'm trying to do a bit more. So all this foraging and stuff, actually, it turns out I'm a reflector. So when you do all these training things and you work out what sort of learner you are, actually it's my downtime that helps me soak stuff in and think. Right. So it's really interesting that actually things are better when I have more time out. But I've always thought I felt bad for going out and doing stuff, and actually didn't realise what good it was doing me.
But the downtime is time that actually you
it's
process.
All this mindfulness stuff, but actually I'm far more effective if I'm working half a day than a full day, which is very strange.
So actually trotting through the local forests like landed gentry, hunting for truffles with your horse is actually better for all of the vets that are involved in the Veterinary Wound Library.
It's terrible, yes, but it is. But I went out there this evening and this afternoon, and actually gelled a whole load of ideas about what we're going to do for the next lot of webinars, and it's really interesting. And you just think, stop feeling guilty for just having a bit of downtime, because actually your head needs it.
There's no need to feel guilty. Mike and I always make a joke of reflection with CPD, purely because actually what we don't like more than anything else is being patronised and told what we need to do to learn.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So you can do all the CPD you want. That's fine. You can read a book. Have you learned from it? Who knows? Who knows? Actually, whatever drives your cognitive process to process information and learn from it is your method, and that may happen for some people in a lecture. It may happen online. It may happen by reading a book. But for the majority of people, I think what really happens is there's this post-learning process, filtration, where your subconscious filters the information through and applies it to other procedures, other rationales, other doctrines, and you then think, hang on, this thing I learned that there was a bit of standalone CPD. Actually, that would be relevant if I did this instead, wouldn't it? As well. So reflection isn't something that you can put into a timed CPD. You can't say, okay, I spent 30 seconds reflection there, it worked. Reflection is something we do every single second of every single day when we're not thinking directly about something else.
I think you're absolutely right there, and some of the athletes I've worked with in the recent past, the subconscious or enhancing the power of the subconscious has been the whole drive to reaching peak performance at that particular time. And like you, Georgie, I mean, obviously your time spent out in the woods, and I can imagine that you're just getting ideas. Just you're doing one thing. You're looking for fungi or mushrooms or riding your horse, and then.
But my brain relaxes. Everything relaxes, and all of a sudden you're not under pressure anymore. And it's like being a cornered cat or a cornered. I'm sat in front of the computer all day, and I'm looking at what I need to do, and I'm thinking, must do this, must do this, must do this. And actually, I get less effective as the day goes on. Yeah. An hour out, I'm almost twice as effective when I've come back than I would have been. So that hour out is actually free.
It really is.
Because actually, when I come back, I'm a bit refreshed. I've clarified some of the thoughts, and you kind of prioritize what's important and think, why am I bashing my head against the wall doing that thing when actually there's nothing in it for anybody really, apart from it might be vanity or something else, and you just think, do I need to be doing that? Probably not. And then so you just doing what needs to be done and not beating yourself up quite so much is quite nice. I think if anything, COVID has helped massively on that, and I don't dare really put online how many people feel they've benefited from COVID, but I do think a few people may feel that actually they've had time to sit back and think about what is important. There's been some real rubbish, people who've had to be laid off work, people who've had, financially things very different. But actually, when it comes down to what's important, I think a lot of people have been able to have a reality check, and hopefully that's going to be good for everyone.
It's the same with any unnatural disaster. And I say that not because I think that coronavirus is unnatural, but the way that we've responded to it has been necessarily an unnatural reaction. In nature, you don't close down businesses and put people on furlough and things like that. That's an artificial construct to get through something. But it's the same with wars, with conflict of any sort, with the pandemic. We've had to think outside the box. We've had to been forced to do things differently. And it's no surprise that actually most of the innovations over the past 150 years have come about during wartime.
I was going to do a tenuous link into wound management, but everything that has come into everything that evolved that we use now with wound management, trauma management, when it comes down to warfare, there's one of the surgeons that we know in human healthcare. He's a fantastic guy, Professor Steve Jeffries. He's done some work with us before.
Yes. Brilliant guy.
He, it's a case of the evolution of what he does has come out of the fact that, believe it or not, the issue they have is not closing wounds; it's blood loss at the scene of injury. So the patients bleed out. So what's happened is there's been a lot of evolution in products that are used, and funnily enough, this is going to come back to mushrooms, isn't it?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
chitin and in mushrooms. So the puffball is used
Yeah.
as a hemostat. So you've got chitin and all sorts of things in there. And what they've realised is that this chitin is a massive hemostat which can stop bleeding within 3 minutes in the femoral artery. And you find that these people who are at the scene of the injury, who are bleeding out, their mate can put this product in that wound and stop the bleeding within 3 minutes.
But it's interesting. This isn't new. This isn't new. Do you remember? What's his name? Otzi. Is it Otzi? I'll look it up. The
Iceman.
The Iceman.
Yes.
In his pack, they discovered, among everything else, a bracket fungus called strop fungus.
Really?
Yeah. And strop fungus, they thought at the time was probably useful because, as a strop, you can use it to sharpen a blade. It's like leather, and you can use it. Now, if you dry it out, you can use it as tinder. But one of the things, yes, Mike, you're timing out.
Just to fill people in, Otzi was a character. Question whether he was a sheep herder or a trader who was discovered when a glacier in the high Alps melted, and what we were gifted was an almost perfectly preserved corpse in his clothes, and we've been able to analyse exactly what he was up to. I can't remember when he was discovered, Julian, or how old it's estimated.
I think it was the late 1990s, wasn't it?
Was he crossing from Austria to Italy, or
he was? And it's, If I'm probably going to get the facts wrong here, but I think when he was discovered, they thought he was a recent murder, and so quick as a flash, they kicked him across the border to allow the German police to investigate. And then when they found out that it was about 3,000 years old, they pushed him back across the border. So it was kudos. So you had this strop fungus. Now, one of the things that I'd read about a few years back, that strop fungus was possibly used for in the Middle Ages, was as a plaster, and you can cut the dorsal surface off and slice it, and the skin of the fungus will actually stick to your skin.
Are we talking about a Birch Polypore?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, amazing! I tried to find one today.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I've got a picture of my foot with a huge blister on when I was doing some climbing ones, and I found a Birch Polypore, cut a square off, and used it as a blister plaster. And it was perfect. And so the feeling was that Otzi was carrying it not as a knife sharpener, but in case he had any wounds.
A Band-Aid.
And so, from a couple of thousand years ago, there were people using these things, and we're rediscovering them. We've lost a lot of that.
Apparently he also had sphagnum moss, and he had a bandage on his hand with sphagnum moss in it, and they found that sphagnum moss is more absorbent than a lot of the alginates that we've got, and it contained a high iodine content, which is antimicrobial. So we haven't got very far.
Yeah, it used to be used as a panty liner. So sphagnum moss is brilliant stuff.
Sphagnum moss absorbs up something like 10 or 12 times its
own weight
volume in fluid.
Yeah.
So
1 million. Now this sounds ridiculous now because I'm confused, but I believe 1 million tons of it was used.
This is a show called Veterinary Ramblings, Georgie. So I wouldn't be worried about whether it sounds.
do carry on.
I've got this quote in one of my talks about sphagnum moss being used in World War I and II, and that over a massive amount was used for bandaging and using absorbent. It was sterilised with phenol at the time, which probably didn't need to be done because that wouldn't be very nice. But I've just suddenly dawned on me how enormous an amount 1 million tons would be, but I just can't. That must have damaged the entire globe's population of sphagnum moss. But
I would worry and Julie about that, Georgie. I think in
Only a lot.
these current times when we talk about millions and billions and billions and trillions, and they're just so big numbers that nobody can actually get their head around it.
No.
If I haven't got on my fingers, we're stuffed.
We get going back. So moving from sphagnum back to fungi. There's a very close connection there. Have you heard of King Alfred's cakes?
No.
Fungus. I think, yeah, Daldinia concentrica, otherwise called cramp balls, and that you find them, they're little sort of chestnut-like excrescences stuck onto dying silver birch.
Oh,
trees.
I know what you mean. I know. They look like charcoal.
Look like charcoal, yeah. Now, they will hold a smoulder. They're the ones. So cramp balls, otherwise called King Alfred's cakes, because of course they look like burnt cakes. Now, they'll hold a smoulder.
You can see the lines in there where it looks like charcoal.
There's another picture there.
The picture that you're showing me there, Georgie, I mean, the one on the top right looks like a hot cross bun, which I'm sure some people will recognise. But the one on the left definitely looks like a pig's testicle. Bottom left. Georgie's showing or a brain and brain stem. Georgie's holding up a lovely picture there of camp balls. Yes,
and that's not the best picture. So normally they will look almost like a burnt conker. But the thing is, if you cut them in half and stick them over a flame, then they will glow. They'll smoulder.
Right.
And you can then wrap them in sphagnum moss and cover them in something like a rhubarb leaf or a butterbur leaf and stick them in your backpack. And you can walk all day. And when you get to a campsite late at night, you unwrap it all. The sphagnum moss doesn't burn, but the King Alfred's cake will hold the smoulder. And so you blow on it and you can reignite a fire. And that was thought to be one of the ways that fire was transported. Rather than having to set up a new fire every night, you carry this smouldering cramp ball.
That was me speaking from the home of the original Olympics, thinking that you carried it on a long stick.
Have you had heros yet?
No, not yet.
It's spelled gyros on the
gyros.
Gyros, but it's pronounced heros. Heros. They're the pita breads filled with sliced chicken or lamb, and they usually put chips and onions and chili sauce and things in as well. So it's a meal in a pita.
So is this like a doner kebab would be known in Turkey? Or,
absolutely. But it's called heros in Greek, and right. I was eating one a few years back, and I was bothered by wasps, and so I quickly sort of crushed one with my fresh heros, and was able to say in truth that the wasp died a hero's death. A hero's death. Died a hero. Hey, look what I have. Look what I have here.
Joke died a hero's death, to be honest with you.
So, Mike, do you have any bats flying around the?
They are. We've actually just switched the lights on outside. It's pitch dark, but there are a lot of bats flying around outside, catching all the mosquitoes.
That's what I love about Greece.
Love bats. Love bats.
Fantastic.
I'm over here for a few days. But one of the highlights for me is going to be tracking down Agamemnon's tomb.
Oh, amazing. Yes. I went there, the Beehive tomb.
The Beehive tomb, which for people who haven't or aren't interested in Googling this, the Beehive tomb accredited to Agamemnon, because there is actually very little evidence to say that Agamemnon was actually buried there.
It doesn't have a headstone or anything. There's no Agamemnon was here, is there?
No, there's nothing like that. But it's actually an underground chamber that has been made in the shape of a beehive. And then, I don't know, do you know any more about this, Julian? Because has that gradually become covered by soil, etc., or was it actually built as an underground tomb? As in,
No,
the tomb was built and then filled in afterwards.
I believe. I'm going to go and check this later. I'll give you an update next week, but I believe it was built as
a beehive
superstructure.
So, like one of the pyramids in Egypt, only in a beehive structure rather than
I think it was subsequently covered, but because of the inherent strength of a beehive shape, it survived. There's a lot of history there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So we're just comparing the beehive tomb of Agamemnon, which is, I'm hoping, only about half an hour up the road from where I am at the moment, to the pyramids in Egypt, except they use a different shape. So I don't know if there's is there anything. Yeah, I don't know whether there's a comparison in nature at all, or why they've called it a beehive, or
because in the Middle Ages and the early apicultural societies, they used these wicker baskets to keep bees in, and so they were sort of bell shaped. Beehive tombs are bell shaped.
It was the Egyptians that first tamed bees.
It was,
domestic. Brian,
you've got to talk to your bees. You've got to tell your bees your problems, haven't you?
Have you?
I used to keep bees. But we used to have to go down, and we were told quite strictly by some beekeepers, you must tell them all your family problems. Now we didn't for 1 year. We thought, let's not, and see what happens. And actually, on an n=1 experimental base, there was no difference in honey production, and the bees were as happy. I'd like to see more people do research on that.
They could have been faking it.
Maybe
they were hanging around your windows and listening. They knew anyway.
They did.
Georgie, have you been doing any more drawing recently? Talking colours.
I have a bit, but not. I've actually been dyeing wool instead, and I had my first experiment. I'm just trying to find where I put it.
Georgie's disappeared again.
I know, I've got ants in my hand.
Have to find some wool.
So this was my first attempt at dyeing wool, which is in a it's kind of slightly pinky purpley, but you can't tell.
It is. So what have you used to dye it?
So you're holding up there a whole. What do you call that? Is that a sheaf or?
No, I would guess you call it a bat when I've done it like that, when I've fluffed it a bit. But it's a massive failure because I'm not very good at reading instructions.
What did you use to dye them?
Damsons, actually.
But is this not where you're supposed to stamp the wool down?
Well,
in urine and stuff like that.
No, there's loads of things. Urine's good, but there's all sorts of different things that you can use. But funnily enough, there is a tenuous link into mushrooms because there's a dyer's mushroom as well. Yeah, there's a dyer's mushroom, and it makes a lovely blackish brown.
Really? I've got to find out what that is.
Why am I surprised that a mushroom would make a blackish brown colour?
Now you say that. But
there are hundreds of colours. There's one that gives a sort of brownish black.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Georgie's disappeared again, and she's back again.
Yes, I'm just going to show you my book about wild colour.
Wild colour.
So, did you ever try that trick with that bolete you had the other day of cutting it in half and seeing it turn blue?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
And I found it in the forest a day later, and somebody had broken it down and had turned blue.
Yeah. There are some that do that are edible, and some that do that are believed to be toxic, and thereby lies the uncertainty. So Boletus satinoides, or Satan's bolete, is thought to be poisonous, but other people, other authors have written that actually it's edible if you boil it, and no one really knows. Now,
I think we might have eaten one once by accident.
I think I might have done.
Tried one by accident.
Yeah, I think I might have done. But
are you saying, Georgie, that you might have eaten one by accident once?
I tend to feed them to Richard first.
Okay.
Oh my God! Look what you can dye your wool with.
Pomegranate.
Pomegranate.
Fantastic.
Now,
I've got
the thing. You were teasing me about the colour that it comes out. So if your mushroom's brown, it comes out brown. Actually, whatever you dye with doesn't necessarily come out the colour that you think it will do. So if you dye with what is a red dahlia, your dye comes out green.
So you're telling us that you're showing us a picture of a red dahlia.
Yeah.
You're saying that if you use this to dye your clothes are going to come out sort of a jade green colour.
Well, it depends how you prepare it, but there's lots of different ways to prepare it. So you have to do a mordant first, which means you've got to prepare your wool to accept the colour. Yeah.
A sticker, basically, something to stick it.
Something to stick it. And then you can put different chemicals on it in order to potentiate different colours. So iron, you can use copper, you can use different things. Some of them are a bit more toxic than others, but generally they'll use alum as a mordant, which is quite a gentle mordant. And then once you put the alum on, you can then soak it.
This is Wild Colour by Jenny Dean, is it?
Yes, it is.
It's a book that tells you how you can use naturally foraged compounds, plants, etc., to make dyes for materials. I'm getting it on Amazon, although other distribution companies are available.
They are.
But if you're sitting down your fat ass like me, not going to shops at the moment, then Amazon seems to work. So there we go. Yeah.
Marvelous. Super. But it's certainly an education, and having not been particularly good at chemistry, I haven't blown the house up yet. And you can put alum in, boil it all up, and you. The worry I had was that wool, people who do felting and stuff, they will know that if you get wool too hot, it will tend to felt, and it turns into a thing. So it says in here to sort of cook it, simmer it for an hour. And I was so scared I was going to felt it that I took it off and didn't. So the colour didn't stick very well. But it's ever so slightly off purple. Actually, you know what? It wasn't taking very well. So I thought, well, fuck it, red wine dyes everything. I thought, it.
We get a lot of amethyst deceiver where we are.
Ooh.
Which is delicious, really nice. And I've often wondered whether we could use that as a dye. I've used a bit of acetone and meths to dissolve the pigments, and used a coffee filter to do a bit of home chromatography to separate the pigments on it. And it really comes out well. You get a lovely purple pigment, and interesting enough, a green one too.
What do you see? Look, these are all the different colours you can get out of just single products, depending on what acids and what mordants you use. So depending on the acid you use, so if you use iron afterwards, you can make the colour more intense or otherwise. So fascinating stuff. I haven't really exploited it yet.
George is showing us a page from this book, which is essentially just like a Dulux colour chart, doesn't it?
Other colour charts are available.
So please, people, don't necessarily buy Crown or Farrow and Ball or something. Although, please, if Farrow and Ball want to sponsor us, then do buy those. Yeah. Otherwise, consider painting your house with stinging nettles.
Actually, stinging nettles are in here. Do you want to know what colour stinging nettles go?
Yeah.
Is it purple?
Actually, do you know what one of the best things for colour is? Nettle. Actually, nettle's pretty pastel.
I thought it was blue. Oh no,
yellows and greens.
Oh, it's woad blue, isn't it?
And you can eat it as well.
I've grown woad. I've got it in the garden. But you need the same amount of woad as you weight as wool. And I put it in a bit late, so I've only got about 5 grams. But can you guess which there's something that gives you a massive amount of colours that are absolutely lovely, and I'll tell you what it is and save you
garden snails.
Garden snails. You could try anything. Well, there's cochineal, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to find the page in a minute. It's hair. Hairs. Give you an absolutely lovely range of colours.
Oh yeah.
The pears.
Is that pears?
Pear.
Sorry, so Georgie is showing us her pears now. And
They go from
oh, hold on, that sounds wrong. That sounds wrong. No, I'm sorry. Georgie isn't showing us her pears now. Georgie is showing us, we'll have to cut that bit.
Colours that you can get from pear. Prunus. The prunus, not the... Is it a prunus? Yeah. Iris, actually. Communis.
Prunus is cherry, and that family.
Prunus is apple and cherry and... Look at all
Right, but you're showing us a range of colours there, Georgie, from a sort of a khaki colour all the way down to a purple colour, all from pear, or is it just the one?
All of those colours from one plant.
Amazing, wow. and you'll get those different colours depending on how you boil it and the mordant you use and the
chemical you use and the pH that you cook it that you finish with. Incredible. Really.
Wow!
And that will have been done for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And just to think that the ancient Brits used to just cover themselves in blue woad.
Yeah.
Just smear it all on.
And shout, here we go, here we go, here we go.
Here we go.
A great part of the process.
Yeah,
but part of the process is you need ammonia to make the woad go dark blue. So they have
we know where that comes, yeah.
Bloody hell.
There's a wonderful museum.
They must have stunk of pee.
There's a wonderful museum just down the road from us called the Singleton Museum, or the Wilden Downland. Have you heard of it, Mike? Have you been there?
Fabulous museum. I partook at the Wilden Downland Museum in a celebration of the Battle of Agincourt, and we shot a storm of arrows. And the target was set at 220 feet or 220 yards. Yeah, 220 yards.
So longbow was that then?
Longbow. This was old English longbows. The targets were set at 220 yards, and about 250 old English longbow archers lined up and launched a storm of arrows. And unlike the Battle of Agincourt, where the outnumbered English under Henry V and the Welsh archers defeated an army of something like 10,000 French noblemen in a battle for survival, we weren't being charged down by the French nobility, and there were only about 250 of us, and we did not turn the sun black. But to partake in that and to hear that number of arrows being loosed at one time out into the fields towards the target was quite an impressive thing to partake in.
Gosh, what an amazing sound. And was that, it was filmed, was it?
Sorry?
It was filmed, presumably, so you could...
It wasn't filmed.
No?
It wasn't. We weren't reenacting, so we were in our standard archery uniforms, if you like, or what we would normally shoot in. The proviso was that you were shooting an old English longbow, which is traditionally made out of the yew tree, and the yew tree has got a unique performance in that the heartwood and the sapwood, the heartwood, the darker heartwood, is better under compression, and the sapwood is better under extension. So as you bend the bow, it enables the bow to bend and then release with a spring, thereby releasing what was at the time the ballistic weapon of the day.
Which is a bit,
I've always wanted to try it.
Yeah, and the Mongols, so under Genghis Khan, did a similar thing. Obviously, they didn't have yew trees, so they used wood and leather, didn't they?
At exactly the same time. What I find interesting in history is that exactly the same time that the British longbow or the archer was the dominant force on the battlefield in Western Europe, enabling our kings to just jaunt over to France and annihilate the Frenchies, for which, of course, they have forgiven us. At the same time, Genghis Khan was using horse sinew and bone on a very beautifully shaped double curved bow.
So that kind of crossbow kind of.
No, it wasn't really a crossbow. That was more of a Venetian thing. It's more of a double curved bow, but it's very short, and it's incredibly powerful. And what that meant,
horseback.
They would shoot from horseback. So the Mongolian pony was like the shock troops of the day, and they would use these short bows. And the key to it, well, you're a horse rider, Georgie.
Try.
The key to locking onto your target with a horse bow is, as the horse is galloping, there is a point where all 4 feet are off the ground. Yeah. And the archer waits for that moment of serenity where all 4 feet come off the ground and everything is stable to release the arrow. And the archers that are skilled in horse riding and archery are phenomenally accurate in that. So if you can imagine facing a whirling dervish of pony-clad archers just charging at you in sort of Brownian motion all over the place, spitting out these lethal barbs that will puncture any armor that they had at the time. Now, obviously, the Mongols were forging across the steppes of Mongolia into China, and a lot of the armor plate that would withstand a spear or a sword were bamboo or leather sheets. They would not stand up to an armor-pointed barb being fired at several hundred miles an hour.
There's fences that do that now, where you can go on horseback and you run the horse along a sort of a guided area.
Yep.
Canter along. It depends on your horse running in a straight line for a start. Mine tends to trip over himself, much to my disgust at times. But I have thought it would be good fun to give it a go. But I don't really want to kill anything, so.
Well, you can do that, and horseback archery is actually a sport. It's mainly based in Hungary nowadays.
I saw a demonstration of Mongolian horsemanship a few years back at some country show or other, and they were absolutely amazing. And you're absolutely right, Mike. There'd be this point during the gallop where all 4 feet are off the ground, and you could. The commentator would say, "Count now. This is the pace. Count, and you can know that on 4 he's going to shoot."
Oh wow!
But the accuracy was incredible, and they were doing it without any effort whatsoever, apparently. And they'd lean off to one side on the horse. They'd be at a right angle to the ground for a go.
Yeah,
I'm not there yet. I'm still just finding mushrooms.
Yeah, you can find mushrooms. That's fine. That's fair enough.
I have to get off to find. I found these in the kitchen.
Wow!
In the kitchen.
I've got to ask my my better half what they're called, because I keep forgetting. Marasmia, I think they're called. Marasmius oreades.
Yeah.
Scotch bonnets, fairy ring champignon.
Yes.
Mousson.
And they grow in your kitchen like that?
They grow in our field, in our paddock with the sheep, and apparently that's what you do. You put them on a thread with a couple of acorns at the bottom and dry them and use them later.
Yeah.
Georgie, what you're holding up there looks almost like a necklace.
Couldn't it?
Yeah, and you could use the acorns there to just tie that necklace around your neck. Amazing.
Can I make a confession though?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Well, let's do.
It smells horrible, doesn't it? It smells horrible.
Veterinary Ramblings confession time.
Done.
What is your confession?
I love hunting for mushrooms. I don't necessarily like eating them.
All right. Well,
we did a pasta the other night, and it was beautiful pasta. It was a 5 mushroom pasta, and recipe to follow. I do have pictures of it sizzling, and I used some of these, and these are just not to my taste.
No, I don't. When they're dried, they give quite an unpleasant smell. I find
They're
honestly hear
really,
it smell.
really nutty. A bit too nutty. They're a bit like we tried some. Oh God, what were they called? Bluets. Field
Oh,
bluets
bluets.
before, and I didn't like the taste. It was too.
No, I love wood bluets. Yes, Mike.
I have a confession.
Yeah.
I don't actually like all of the gins that we feature on the show.
No, Mike. Seriously, don't tell us what you don't like, because those people might be sponsoring us. So, yeah, but I know which ones you mean.
Over.
Yeah.
It's finished, isn't it?
Do you, I love mushrooms. I absolutely love them.
What's your confession, Julian?
I have my confession is that there are a few mushrooms I don't like, and one is giant puffballs.
Really? You
Yeah.
don't like them?
I don't like, because they look perfect. You can slice them, and as long as they're not yellow in the middle, they're edible.
You're fine if you're bleeding out if they're yellow in the middle. Then
Yeah.
they're really handy.
but I used to have them, toasted and have an egg on top. I went off them. I don't know whether I had too many or whatever, but I went off them. Guys, we have had a magic evening. Talking about magic, it's been a magic evening. Because
Is this another mushroom link, Julian?
no, it's not. It's not. It's a link to.
Oh, you're such a pair of fun guys.
It's a link.
There's not mushroom in this room.
We've covered everything from Icemen of 2,000 years ago, all the way through fungal identification, natural dyeing of material and wool colouring, all the way through to cancer therapy. And I think really that deserves a special CPD certificate. Oh, so here we go. Now I've written this CPD certificate phonetically. So it's not English, it's not Greek, but it's in Greek symbols and it's phonetic. So there's certificate to demonstrate learning. And it says, Ευχαριστώ, of course, thank you, listener. Ευχαριστώ, listener. Veterinary Ramblings, and it says, Julian, Georgie, and Mike. And you can read that down there. Phonetically, it reads me and him and her.
Fabulous.
And there's a few pictures there. Now, if you explain the pictures, so what we got there is a cuttlefish, one of the Greek delicacies. Delicious. There's a Greek villa with a little Greek cat there. There's a Greek villa with a little pool.
Yeah,
and
that's
this
not
might
where
need
I'm
a little
staying.
bit more explanation. So here's a bottle of Greek white wine and a carton of banana juice. Now, I love Greece. I love the Greeks. I love everything Greek. I'll be honest, Greek wine, a little bit of an acquired taste. But if you get a bottle of Greek white wine, and mix it half and half with banana juice, you get a lovely cocktail that we called monkey juice when we were in Greece a few years back. And it's worth trying. So half and half banana juice, Greek white wine. Wonderful.
Hey, do you know what, Julian? I'll try that tomorrow. Not.
Give it a go. Give it a go. Now, Mike, don't listen for a second. I think I've fooled him, Georgie. Okay, you can listen again, Mike.
Okay. No.
Night all.
We need to reflect on our CPD momentarily.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice that you say night all, but we haven't actually completely finished the show at this point.
Sorry.
Our CVS regulations are fairly clear on this, that you are required to reflect upon the CPD that you've been given. So I'd like to invite all of our audience to think back over some of the nuggets that we have provided for you this evening as CPD, and just
some of them are chicken nuggets, although other fast foods are available.
No, it's chicken of the woods, Julian.
Chicken of the wood nuggets.
Not chicken. Just reflect on the things that we've shared with you tonight, please.
You could do it in panko breadcrumbs.
Julian, are you reflecting or not?
Sorry.
Please take this seriously, Julian.
Yes, Julian, goodness sake. Jesus. Just reflect on our CPD this evening.
Yeah. Reflect. I'm doing. Yeah.
I think we're glitching like mad here. No,
I
you
think
don't
we
have to
are.
pray, Georgie. You don't have to pray. We're going to bring it to a close. Julian, traditionally you tell a joke at this time of the evening, and we round out from there.
Well, I couldn't really come up with a clean Greek joke. I've got a few very unclean ones, but I just thought, because we're talking about foraging and being in the woods and things, I'd tell a little story about the bear. The bear, because there's that old question: do bears have seps in the wood?
Hang on. Is this the one about the princess riding her horse through the woods?
No, I thought of that, but I thought maybe not.
Because Georgie might be offended.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So what about the bear trying to poo in the woods? And this bear's sitting on a tree stump.
The who? The Pope.
A bear, brown bear. And
Sorry.
he's trying to poo in the woods. And it hasn't had a lot of fibre, this bear. And suddenly he hears this. He looks over, and there's a rabbit sitting next to him, doing about 1,000 poos a minute. You know. The bear says, "You're all right, rabbit." And the rabbit says, "Yeah, fine." He says, "What are you doing?" "I'm doing some poos." I said, "Well, I'm trying to do a poo, and it's taking me ages." And the rabbit says, "Oh, I ate lots of grass here." Out they come. And the bear says, "Do you have a problem with the poo sticking to your fur?" And the rabbit says, No problem at all." The bear says, "Great."
That's a very visual joke.
It's a very visual joke.
Which implies that the bear picks up the rabbit and wipes his own bottom with the rabbit. Because the rabbit doesn't have a problem with poo sticking to his fur.
Let's face it, if you were a bear, you would, wouldn't you? Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Can I just say, for the purposes of anyone listening, that was like a story. It's not like real. Rabbits were not harmed
by bears.
The rabbit wasn't harmed because the poo didn't stick.
And
he put it down carefully.
He did, very carefully.
Probably.
Being a bear, he then ate it afterwards. Unfortunately.
I think we're at that time.
Is that time? Okay.
I think even our American listeners are not going to enjoy this. So on that note.
On that bombshell.
Yeah, on that hooey note.
Go enjoy the rest of your evening.
Go and enjoy the rest of your evening, or unless you're listening to us on podcast and doing something different at the same time. And don't forget, you can. Yeah, use the fast forward. You can listen to us on Spotify and other podcast streaming services, or view us live on Facebook. So with that note, if you've liked what we've given you, please click like, link below, share it with your friends if you think they might enjoy it as well. Georgie Hollis, thank you for standing into the breach and covering for me whilst I'm away on visits abroad.
Glad to take it.
May your dog go with you.
May your dog go with you. Carlos Taxidi, Mike. Enjoy your holiday.
I shall. Thank you very much indeed, guys. Thank you, Georgie. Take care. Cheers, guys. You take care.
Right. Cheers, Mike.
Oh,
isn't she fantastic?
She's just freaking amazing.
Yeah.
We've spoken for nearly 3 hours on mushrooms.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible.